Hey everyone, welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell-Lewis and thank you for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're having a fantastic week. So today I am talking with best-selling author, channel, conscious coach, wife, mother, and founder of Luminance Healing, Dmitria Burby. Demetria will join me to talk about her personal journey to discovering her truest self and how that discovery has helped her to unlock joy in her life. She'll also share tips with us on how we can do the same. So stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thank you, everyone, for joining. All right, so I am back with my guest. Welcome, Demetria, to the Glow Up Girl podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to join you today.
Yes, well, let's go ahead and dive in. And everyone that is actually watching this, can we first talk about that great wallpaper behind her? Like, this is...
Thank you.
I love it.
I put it up at the beginning of the pandemic because I was like, I am going to be on camera a lot and I want something, fun. And
Yes.
everyone comments on it. They're actually little cranes.
Yes, it's so
there.
cute. I love it. Well, good job. It's so great. And it compliments you very well.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to dive in. So why don't you tell everyone out there listening and watching who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name's Demetria, and I'm an author and a consciousness coach. What that really means in, normal person language is that I really help people discover a broader awareness of what's possible in their lives. So, I think for so many of us, or at least myself, I went through life thinking that all that was available to me was, a certain set of things. And that was what reality was. And as I've gone through my own journey of awakening and really rediscovering myself, realizing that there's so many more options available to us, and helping other people discover that for themselves is really my passion and what I spend my time doing.
Awesome. I love that. So to just dig a little bit into your own personal journey, what type of beliefs did you have before you were able to go through this transformation of realizing that there was more?
Yeah, I grew up, my mom is an immigrant, and we grew up, lower middle class, and definitely had a very strong work ethic in our family. So we were taught that, to sort of get out of the situation that we were in financially, the way to do that was to work hard, to study hard in school, to get into a good college, to have a good career, to really work. And I think that so many of us are brought up with that mentality of,
Yes.
you can create anything you want. This is America, it's the American dream. And to do that, you just have to work hard. And I followed that path, and I was really successful and creating this life that I wanted for myself. And got to a point, where I had sort of checked all the boxes, if you will. I had a really loving spouse, I had kids, I had a nice house, I had a great job, a really nice career title, and I wasn't happy. And I couldn't understand why that was, because I had done all the things that I was told I was supposed to do. And so that belief that you have to, one, work really hard and sort of like push yourself to and beyond exhaustion to make it in life.
Yeah.
That belief was just so deeply rooted in my being. And so learning how to get over that, and really what happiness meant for me, that wasn't something that was discussed as a young woman or even as a young adult. Really understanding what happiness looked like, and so really uncovering the nuances of what does make a happy life. Is it a nice car and a beautiful home, or is there something else that really makes up happiness for me?
I love that, because I think that is so true. When you were saying that, I was like, Yep.
Mhm.
I heard, I mean, like I grew up and heard those same things. Like you've got to, go to graduate, go to college, get an
Mhm.
internship, get a good job, do all these
Mhm.
things. And you're going to have like in your life, you just sort of see that as like the plan. But
Yeah.
I think it is something to, us getting all that and having all those things, and you get to a place to where you're like, but am I truly happy? And I think, something you have referenced is a sort of unlocking this joy in your
Mhm.
life. So, okay, when you got to the place of like time out, I don't know that I'm truly like happy.
Mhm.
Or I would probably say maybe you're happy, but you weren't finding joy.
Yeah.
So tell us how you then unlocked
Mhm.
joy in your life.
Yeah, I mean, it started with this realization of like my husband would be like, "Hey, let's go do this activity with the kids." And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm just so tired. Like I can't that I want to go and spend time with you, but it just sounds I'm so tired. I can't imagine that like really being fun."
Mhm.
And he finally, was a little frustrated with me in this moment, and he said like, what is it that would be fun for you? Like what is going to make you happy? What
Mhm.
is it that you want to do? I've offered all these different things, and this is like
Yeah.
months of this. It's not like a single conversation.
No.
Where I'm like, oh, I can't do that. It just doesn't sound good. And then, he was like, well, what is it? And it was a really simple question. And I think, unlocked something for me, which was this realization that I didn't know what would make me happy. I didn't know what would bring
Mhm.
me joy or what I was going to have fun doing. I had spent so many years from adolescence all the way to this point as an adult woman,
Mhm.
with children, working so hard towards a goal that I had
Mhm.
stopped asking myself, what is it that I enjoy doing? I just was so focused on the work and this
Mhm.
like, false end goal that I was going to get to at some point that I
Mhm.
had forgotten who I was. And so
Yeah.
that question of, like, what is it that is going to bring you joy? What is it that's going to make you happy? Was this catalyst for me to say, oh, wait, I do need to understand this. It's not that I can't advocate for myself. I'm
Mhm.
fairly outspoken person. So, like that's
Yeah.
not my problem. It was that I just didn't know really
Yeah.
who I was anymore.
Yeah.
And it opened up this pathway of me asking, well, who am I and what do I enjoy? And
Mhm.
I thought like, oh, I'm gonna like, I'm type A, like I can knock this out. I'll sit at a coffee shop. You take the kids to the park. I'm gonna sit at this coffee shop and I'm just gonna write down all the things that make me happy and
Mhm.
like who I am. And
Mhm.
I sat down and I was like, oh wait, this is not a like 1 hour, like let me knock this task off my
Exactly.
list thing. And I laugh
Exactly.
about it. But like in that moment, I was so disconnected from the reality of my
Mhm.
situation that I really did think like, oh, you take the kids to the park. I'll do this in an hour and I'll get back to you, right? Like, that was years ago now, and I just laugh because it's like this is not a 1 hour task.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
a lifetime of really
Is
learning about
yeah.
yourself.
Exactly. No, I mean, I'm so glad that you are able to laugh at it and laugh at yourself because I do think that for a lot of people, over the last few years, right, everything being in a pandemic has helped people. A lot of people got to that place of like, what actually brings me happiness? Or
Mhm.
where do I find joy? Because I always
Yeah.
tell people, I'm like, there's a difference. I'm like, happy is like fleeting. Like you can
Yeah.
be happy one moment and then the next you're like, well, I mean, but joy is something so different because it fills the cup differently.
Yes.
Then it actually fills the cup versus happiness is just like I said, it's like a moment. And
Mhm.
so I think that there are probably a lot of people who are still working towards figuring out what makes them happy and or brings that ultimate joy because like even for me prior to the year before in 2019, like I talk about this a lot, so everybody who's heard this, I know but it's my story and I have to share it with Demetria. So it's like, I started going to therapy because I just didn't have any balance and I was out of
Mhm.
whack because, like you say, you're trying to be all those things for other people. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just like going. Like, I was like, I can push through anything. I can push through anything because I work hard. And
Yeah.
so I was like all these balls in the air and trying to figure out like, I gotta do better because this, I'm gonna crack, like I'm gonna break because this is not
Mm-hmm.
sustainable. And so then, come into 2020, and then it's like, oh, okay, so now you're gonna be working at home and you're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
be in the office at like from sun up to sundown every day. So that was like an
Mm-hmm.
immediate like shift, that it was a forced, shift. And it
Yeah.
forced me to start looking at like, well, what type of life do I want to live? Even when we get to a place of more of the, I guess, endemic stage of living, I
Mm-hmm.
guess where we're sort of shifting now. But what life do I want for myself? Because
Yeah.
I was like, I got into a place where I was like, I'm unwilling to give up this balance that I found. I'm unwilling to go
Mm-hmm.
back to sitting in an office space all day, or not being able to take those little moments to just go. When I walk by to the bathroom, I always stop and cuddle with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
He's always like, when he sees me, his eyes are like, he's always
She's
like, "Oh,
coming.
she's coming." Yeah. And he tries to do this thing where he like stops me and I'm like, I'm too fast. And then I said, gotta get some kisses. So my husband's always like, so you realize that like he doesn't want you in his face right now. It's like, doesn't matter what he wants right now because I want a kiss. So,
Right.
but I just think that there's this this importance of like figuring out self-discovery, figuring out
Mm-hmm.
what's important to you.
Yeah.
And I can't say it enough times where I'm just like, man, over the last couple of years, if you haven't stopped and just
Mm-hmm.
actually truly thought about like what is important for you as a person,
Yeah.
then it's like you've missed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like collectively, we've all been going through that. And I do, if
Mhm.
you haven't taken the time at this point, like a couple years into this pandemic, it's like, okay, now's the time to really stop and think about it because we
Yeah.
are transitioning back into a different
Hmm.
world. We're going to
Hmm.
be moving back. If you haven't already moved back to an office, we're
Hmm.
moving in that direction. And the question is, how are you going to take the things that you've learned about yourself
Hmm.
over the last 2 years, the things that are really important, like stopping and, cuddling with your dog or whatever it is, and take that back into this new model that we're about to create, right? Because what we
Hmm.
don't want to do is say, oh, okay, we're going to just snap back into the old model, which is go to
Yes.
work first thing in the morning, kind of be disillusioned because we're in this different space where, okay, in this environment, I'm just like this robot, like,
Yeah.
working really hard, not thinking, not thinking about feeding myself or breathing or like taking any
Hmm.
time for myself. And then by the time you get home, you're exhausted. It's like, no, we found, it was definitely a struggle to discover this, but we found working at
Hmm.
home that we want those moments where we can take a
Yeah.
break or,
Hmm.
take a deep breath or snuggle with our dogs or, sit and actually eat,
Hmm.
which seems so basic, but those are the things that a lot of us were skipping
Hmm. Hmm.
pre-pandemic. And so how do we create something that's healthier for all of us,
Hmm.
that bring this like self-care and self-awareness back into,
Yeah.
this opportunity that we have to create something new.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%
Hmm.
with you. Because I've been watching different people, sort of go back in and, and,
Hmm.
and a lot of people are going in on a hybrid, more
Yeah.
hybrid model. And, my job is still, there are people in our office, but like they have started the discussions about trying to get more people back in, and I think,
Yeah.
you have to figure out what works best for you. But this is
Hmm.
also a time, as you mentioned even earlier, like advocating for yourself. So it's
Yeah.
advocating for yourself and your mental wellness, because you have to be able to say, well, I know you would like me to be there X amount of days, but I'm only willing to do this
Hmm.
because, and then also, you know what? I mean, we've worked successfully for 2 years at home, and
Yeah.
nothing slipped through the cracks. I think gives you even better opportunity to like have a discussion with your manager.
Yep.
So, all right. So let's keep talking about this transformation that you went through. So,
Yeah.
so when it took you many more sessions
Yes.
or time.
Many more sessions of really figuring out who I am. And, you know, it's a process. So that day at the coffee shop, I did sit
Mhm,
down. I did start to write down all of the things that I was. And the list that I came up was I was my job title. I was a mom, I was a wife, I was a sister,
mm,
I was a daughter, I was a friend, I was all these things. And what I realized is, that's a really great starting place. I didn't have
mhm,
anything that was a definition of me without
mhm.
anybody else, right? So
Yes.
everything that I described myself to myself as was an external validation by somebody else.
Mhm,
And there
mhm,
was nothing in that list that was, oh, if you take, everybody in my life out away, and
mhm.
I'm just here by myself on an island, that was the question of like, okay, but who am I without all of that external
Right.
validation?
Yeah.
And it really helped me understand, oh, part of the reason that I work so hard, part of the reason that I, am a people pleaser and say yes to everything is because I'm looking for that external validation. I
Mm,
didn't have a source for
mhm,
myself to just validate me,
mhm,
right? There
mhm.
wasn't that self-love is ultimately what I realized, to feel like I was enough unless somebody else was telling me I was enough.
Mm, that is a lot. That was very
Yes.
deep. That
It
was
goes deep
so,
fast.
girl, that was it was because that is so true for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
That people, you do want that validation from someone else. You want,
Mhm.
you want your husband to say that, oh yeah, I love when you do this, or I love how you cook this, da, da, da. You want the boss to say, oh, you're doing a great job. But like you said, you're trying to figure out like, who are you without all those things.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
when you got to that place and you
Mm.
said, when you got there, what did you do next to sort of further the transfer to get to a place to where you felt comfortable with who's Demetria without being a wife, mom,
Mhm.
ex title, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Da.
Yeah. Well, at the first part of my journey, I was just reading books, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I was like, how do I figure out who I am? How do I, somebody else has gone through this. I'm not the first person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just read a bunch of books that helped, give me exercises to do to sort of map out different ways that I interacted with the world. I was taking a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of like personality tests to try and
Uh-huh.
figure it out, right?
Uh-huh.
Like all these things come into play. And I think early on in my journey, it was exactly what I needed, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
asked the question, who am I? And the universe provided, right? Like people were
Mm-hmm.
recommending books and like one thing led to another. And so that was a like really gentle entry into that, you know, self-discovery. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had a moment. I was working in corporate America and I had this moment where I was like, "Oh my gosh, my life really I need to shift." Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can continue to do what I'm doing and be really successful at it. Um but I'm going to miss out on like truly living life. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
miss out
Mm-hmm.
on my relationship with my husband. I'm going to miss out with my kids growing up. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just had this moment. I don't know how else to describe it. And I ended up leaving corporate America,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like took that big leap. And I came home and I was like, "Hey, babe, I think I want to quit my job." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, you think you want to quit your job?" Like he of course sees it before I do always.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he was like really supportive, and he was like, "Yeah, we can make this work. You should
Mm-hmm.
quit." So when I did that, I opened up this opportunity to spend a lot of time just diving in to, without my corporate job and that title that like I held on
Mm-hmm.
to so tightly, who am I? What am I going to be? I have this opportunity to sort of like create myself into anything. I was a blank canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And And immediately I went to like, I'm going to be the best mom there ever was. Um,
Mhm.
because again, your like ego is holding on to like any last thread of
Mhm.
identity that you have. And I was like, I'm going to be the best mom. And I was like, I'm going to make their lunches every single day. I'm going to show up at school all the time. I'm going to be like everything I thought that like all the other moms were doing. And there's just this really funny story. I mean, I find it hilarious. I don't know if my son thinks it's funny. But it was, I think it was his 16th birthday or 18th birthday. I don't remember now. And I was like, oh my gosh, the best thing would be if I showed up at school with a bunch of balloons for him, you know? And so I like go do my thing and I get all the balloons and it's like this
Mhm.
huge bouquet of balloons and like it's going to be a big deal or whatever and he's going to be like, "Oh, I'm so loved by her." And so I show up at school, I have these ridiculous balloons in my hand and I walk into the high school, which I have not really like been into during school hours before because I was
Mhm.
working. And the woman looks at me and I was like, "I wanted to leave these for my son." And she looks at me, she's like, "There are not balloons are not allowed on campus." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She was like, "You need to leave. You're not allowed to be in the school. You're a parent." And like I just
Oh
get
my
this whole
goodness.
thing and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like my idea of what being this like amazing mom
Mhm.
is actually like totally made up in my head. It's not even a real
Mhm.
thlike parents don't bring balloons to school apparently when people are in high school. It's like not a thing. Um, and like the woman was like, "What are you even doing here?" Like it's the middle of the
Yeah.
day. Like, I just had made up this fantasy in my head.
Mhm.
And of course I was like texting my son. I was like, "Hey, I brought these balloons." He's like, "Please go home. Like, please leave." And I was like, "I'm gonna leave him at your car. I'll just tie him, it'll be awesome." He's
No.
like, "Please just take him home. Like, don't do any of that. You're embarrassing." And I was like, "Okay."
Oh.
But it was this like really great lesson for me
Mhm.
in, going from one thing that was an external definition of myself
Right.
to just another thing.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
what I needed in that moment to be like, okay, you can't grasp onto this other,
Mhm.
external thing. And then after that, I somehow, just got really into meditating.
Mhm.
And I don't really even know how it came about so strongly, but I was like, well, I don't have anything else to do with my day. I can't take balloons to the high school. And I can't work out more than like my one workout class a day at this point. So
Mhm.
I was like, what else am I going to do? And so I really got into meditating. And
Mhm.
that is the thing that really started to unlock this. Okay,
Mhm.
I have time to just slow my nervous system down, not
Mhm.
have my mind racing, and I think it was really the first time in my life where I took the time to just ask a question and just
Mhm.
wait, like
Right.
not have my mind spin on
Mhm.
making a list of the answer. It was just like, okay, who am I? What am I here to do? What am I exploring?
Mhm.
And just sort of sit with that. And that was like sort of the acceleration of the self discovery
Mhm.
journey.
Love that. I love that because there is something in actually asking the question and listening for the listening, because
Hmm.
most times we're often moving and going about life so quickly that we are just trying to, we say we're listening, but we're like already, but then here's the answer. Here's what I want the answer to be. So you're just
Yeah.
already jumping into like making that thing be the action, taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. We almost ask the questions to
Mhm.
fit into the answers that we want,
Exactly. Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So, um, what would you say for what role? Okay. Before I ask you this, what role would you say that listening to your like intuition, your gut,
Yeah.
what role has that played in your self-discovery, your journey?
I think it's everything. And it ties back again to that idea of an external validation or definition
Mm-hmm.
of who you are versus an internal definition,
Mm-hmm.
because your intuition is going to be your compass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like on
Yeah.
this journey of life that we're all on, there's only one you. There's only one journey. It's super unique to you. Nobody is going to live your same life. And so being connected with your intuition, with that inner guidance is key, because what's right for me is going to be different than what's right for you. It's different
Mhm.
for the next person and the next person. And it's like, we can look at other people's journeys and get inspiration from them. We can say,
Mhm.
oh, that piece really feels good. But you have to check it with your own, that internal
Mhm.
compass, and say, like, oh, yeah, is that the right next for me? Well, maybe
Right.
it's interesting, but it's not quite right now. Maybe it's something that's interesting and it will come back around, in 2 years or five
Mhm.
years. Um, but really understanding who you are and being able to listen to that, I think is critical to
Mhm.
building that foundation of your own self-awareness.
Yes.
Because, especially as a coach, I'm like, I'm here to offer you, options,
Mhm.
but I am definitely not going to be able to tell you this is right for you in this exact moment.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I love that. So what advice or tips could you give to our audience that may be
Hmm.
listening, watching, that's saying, I want to start that. I want to take that first step.
Yeah. The first thing is just ask yourself, like, who am I? What am I? What am I here to do?
Mhm.
What makes me feel fulfilled and brings me
Mhm.
joy? And if you can answer the what brings me joy or what makes me happy,
Mhm.
outside of it being another person, right? Like, that can't be your answer. um,
Right.
lean into that, right? The second step is to lean into the things that bring you joy, because that's going to be your path to
Mhm.
finding yourself. It will just naturally unfold. And I think the third tip is find ways to prioritize that in your life, right?
Mhm.
Prioritize yourself and what makes you happy and brings you joy. Because it's so easy to just have your calendar fill up with other stuff,
Mhm.
or I mean, even stuff that's like having dinner with friends, right? It's easy
Yeah.
to fill your calendar with stuff like that, but take time to engage in activities, or I mean, even other things like meditation, or
Mhm.
some form of mindfulness, to just reconnect with yourself and recharge your battery a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that a lot. Okay, so let's talk about how you work with people, any programs that the audience might want to know about, and how they can connect to you.
Yeah, I work with people in a mentorship sort of program. So it's an ongoing um, meetings that we, either meet weekly or bi-weekly, and really just work through how we open you up to seeing things in a new way. And then also, how do we integrate that into your life? Because I think so often people will say, like, "Oh, I found this new thing out about me, and like it
Mhm.
means that I'm have to throw away everything that I've built, and I have this new thing, this new identity that I'm going to hold on
Mhm.
to." And the goal of the work that I do is really to help you discover that, like, new shiny thing that you are,
Mhm.
and then figure out how you integrate that seamlessly into your life. Because if you've built your life for however many years to get here to this
Right.
moment, all that stuff is relevant and it's important to you.
Mhm.
So it's really learning how to take that, like, new insight about yourself and
Mhm.
integrate it seamlessly into your lived experience. So it's not, like blowing up your life and like moving in a whole
Yeah.
different direction.
Yeah.
It should be like joyful and easy, not catastrophe and rebuilding. um, so that's the approach that I take with my clients. And you can find me on Instagram at Finding Luminance or findingluminance.com. Um, and any of those ways are great.
Awesome. All right. So, and if you are not quite ready for a coaching experience,
Yep,
Demetria's got some books that you
I
can
do.
start with. So you can
Yeah.
you tell us about your books that you've written?
Yeah, I actually have them. So, the first one I wrote is called Return to the Light Within. And it is really my own transformation story.
Oh.
So it's
Mhm.
just first person, all of the things that I was experiencing and all of my thoughts and like freak outs. I walk you through
Mhm.
all of them so that you can feel like you're not alone through the process.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then the second one came in, and it's called Finding Your Light Within.
Mhm.
And it is really a framework for self discovery. So it has different stages that we go through in self discovery. It has journal prompts, it has some exercises, some meditations to do, some visualizations, and
Mhm.
really helps you just, essentially do what we do in the mentorship, but you can do it on your own time and your own pace.
Mhm.
So that's what that book is.
Awesome. I love it. And where can they find those books?
The easiest place is Amazon, and just ordering it online.
Okay.
Yeah,
And we will be sure I'll drop the links to those in the show notes to make it even easier for you.
thank you.
All right. So love, love, love this discussion. And before we wrap up, I'm going to go into three things with Demetria. Ask you three questions. Just helps us get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
One, how do you start your day?
I wake up and do a little energy clearing of my body, just
Mhm.
like a short meditation. So that's always first thing before I get out of bed. I usually get my kids up and going
Mhm.
to school or whatever's going on. And then I have a yoga practice that I do almost every morning. I try and do that before I really get into my day. So
Mhm.
those are the three things that I definitely do most mornings.
Awesome. Now, what do you do when you have a day off?
My days off are actually pretty similar to my days on.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of if I have clients or not in a particular
Mhm.
day, but I really fit the things that are important to me in every single day. So again,
Mhm.
have my like meditation, my movement, my yoga practice. I spend time with my family and friends, and
Mhm.
that is a core part of my day, whether I'm, working or not. So I feel really blessed that my days are very similar, and
Mhm.
working for me is just getting to work with my amazing clients.
Awesome. Love that. All right. And how do you end the day?
We end the day, we try and have some family time right
Mhm.
before like sort of bedtime. And that is always really grounding for me because our kids are a little older now. So, everyone's going in a different direction. So just like
Mhm.
bringing the family unit back together is important to me. And then once that happens, it's like a really sweet wind down, and I usually read right before I fall asleep and
Mhm.
do another energy clearing just to like clear out anything in my body before I rest.
Awesome. I love that. I love it. All right. So before I let you go, what are two to three things that you'd like the audience to take away from our discussion today?
Hmm. I think number one, that it's worth it to ask the question, to start the journey
Mhm.
of contemplation around, who you are and who you want to be.
Mhm.
I think the second thing is that it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be, completely life changing. It can happen in really subtle, beautiful ways that feel easy. And the third thing is prioritize yourself. Even if that is, making sure that you can snuggle with your dog,
Mhm.
a couple of times a day or whatever it is that like
Mhm.
rejuvenates you, make sure that you're prioritizing that, especially as we shift our lives again. Um,
Mhm.
it's so important.
Yes, yes. And lastly, tell the audience one more time how they can connect to you online.
You can find me on Instagram at Finding Luminance or at findingluminance.com.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Demetria. This was such a great conversation. I loved hearing your personal story. It's amazing how you don't know someone, but your stories have very similar
Hmm.
similar feels to them. So this has been so helpful just listening to you. It helps us to realize that like we're not the only ones
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
may feel a certain way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun, and I
Mhm.
really enjoyed laughing with you for most of this. So thank you for making
Awesome.
it fun.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thank you again to Demetria for joining the show today. If you want to learn more about Demetria and her business, you can check her out at dmitriaburby.com. Also check the show notes. You'll find the link there. Check us out at glowupgirl.com. You can find all of our social handles, listen to previous podcast episodes, and so much more. Thank you all so much for listening, for taking time out of your day to pop in and spend some time with me. I really appreciate it. If you have any thoughts or ideas, or there are topics that you'd love to hear me talk about, please drop me an email at hello@glowupgirl.com or hit me up on Instagram at glowupgirl. Go ahead, slide in the DMs and give me your ideas. Well, thank you so much again, everyone. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will see you all next week. Until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.